Hello, how you doing? And welcome back to the channel. Why is this weekend in the Six Nations so big? In this video, I'm going to be going through 5 points, 5 talking points, 5 things to keep an eye on, 5 storylines of why this weekend is a massive weekend in the Six Nations. There's brilliant narratives everywhere. So I'm going to mention all the different games and just talk about what's at stake really for those teams. I think there's a lot of things to keep an eye on. If you are new here, do subscribe to the channel. Thank you to everyone who has watched, who's liked, who's subscribed over the last week or so. It's been awesome to see. So do like the video, drop a comment down below as well. What do you make, whatever team you support, of this weekend in the Six Nations and everything that I go through in this video? All right, let's get into it. So the points that I've written down in front of me here, I'm going to go through these in order. Number 1, will the Six Nations title be decided this weekend? That's in reference to a huge game between Ireland and France. Can Scotland go 2 from 2? Really significant weekend for the Scots. They've never won their first 2 games of a Six Nations, which is a brilliant statistic and shows what's at stake for them this weekend. Number 3, does Warren Gatland need to change his selection policy? A lot of debate about that in Wales at the moment. Number 4, England have to win. They have to beat Italy. And number 5, how good are Italy? I want to see them back up their performance on the opening weekend when they go to Twickenham on Sunday. So those are the 5 things that I'm going to be talking through in this video. Let's go back to the start though. Will the Six Nations title be decided? Now, Scotland fans are going to be watching this and hoping that their side has quite a thing to say about that, particularly if they can go 2 from 2, which I'm going to come on to. But Ireland against France, the pre-tournament favourites, Ireland's favourites with the bookies, France, the defending Grand Slam champions, unbeaten through 2022 on this incredible win streak. They are the 2 best teams in the competition. So will this result ultimately determine who wins the Six Nations at the end of it? I think you can make a pretty compelling case that will happen. I'm not going to go there quite yet because I still think, particularly for France, I think there's some tough fixtures in there. I still look at their match against England at Twickenham, and this is crazy because England have not provided us with any sort of evidence that they're capable of taking a scalp like France. But I still look at that game and think that England could potentially be in a much better spot come that match, so we'll wait and see. But look, regardless of that, this is massive. The number 1 team in the world against the 2nd ranked team in the world. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the Six Nations. For all the glory of the Six Nations, for what a brilliant tournament it is. In terms of quality, it was always the Rugby Championship, or its various different guises, what it was called, was always had the better teams in the world in Australia, New Zealand and South Africa. The shift over the last maybe 4 years or so has started to move more towards the Northern Hemisphere when you consider that Scotland up to 5th as well after their victory over England. The significance of this match is a really big one. It is going to be huge amount of quality on display, and the importance of the result is just, I mean, it's evident, isn't it? It could define the championship potentially. France will have to be better as well, by the way. They need to perform better than they did against Italy, and they will. It's almost one of those, isn't it, where it's easier for France to get themselves in a better position for this game because they know they have to be better. And it's not, I don't mean that in a sense that they disregarded Italy or were complacent, but away to Ireland, in the Aviva, at Dublin, Ireland playing some brilliant rugby. France know they have to be on it emotionally, physically, tactically, all those things. So I think France will just be better this game. Whether they're going to be good enough, personally, I don't think so. I think Ireland will get the job done, but I cannot wait for that match. Really, really exciting. Number 2, can Scotland go 2 from 2? As I said already, they've never done that in the Six Nations. I think it's 4 times they've won their first game and then they've gone on to lose their second game, which just kills their momentum in the championship. They've never even put themselves in a position to seriously be competing for a Six Nations after the second weekend, really, if you want to look at it that way. Certainly, they've never been in position to aim for a Grand Slam. Now, Wales will be better as well, the same thing as what I just said for France. You've got to remember, and everyone's very negative on Wales at the moment, they came up against Ireland. And Ireland just blew them away inside the opening half an hour, completely drew any sort of atmosphere out of that Cardiff crowd, silenced them. But it's Ireland, and Ireland have won a series away to the All Blacks recently. They've beaten pretty much everyone in front of them. They're most people's favourites to win this title. It's not as awful a result, I think, as people will maybe make out. And also Wales left some points out there. They did get themselves in position. They need to be more efficient in the red zone. But if they can tweak a few things, Wales will make this tougher for Scotland, I think. I still think Scotland at home will have enough. I think they will go 2 from 2, but it's a big moment for Scottish rugby in terms of the interest of the Championship and the sides that traditionally have struggled more in the Championship. And I'm going to get onto this with Italy as well in a moment. It'd be quite good to see Scotland go 2 from 2. I think that would be a positive thing. The other thing as well, looking at Scotland, is there's a number of different ways you can position their result against England. And on the one hand, they were ruthlessly efficient. They barely got into the 22, but when they did, they came away with points. And that's a sign of a good side, you could argue. The flip side of that, if you want to be negative about it, would be to say they have to create more opportunities. They can't rely on always taking every single opportunity they get, because some games you might miss a couple of those, and then all of a sudden you're coming out on a different side of that result. So Scotland need to be on it. They need to kick on, and I think they will, because immediately, even in the press conference after the game at Twickenham, it's exactly what Jamie Ritchie and Gregor Townsend were saying. Number 3, does Warren Gatland need to change his selection policy? Obviously went for a lot of older heads in his side: Ken Owens, Alan Wynne-Jones, George North, Justin Tipperick, probably some others in there that I'm forgetting as well. Well, Lee Halfpenny was set to start and then had to pull out through injury. So he went to the players that he knows, and he's been quite forthright in the media talking about it's too late to change. This is a process that Wayne Pivac really needed to have made the team younger during his tenure than it has done. And actually, in fairness to Pivac, I heard a stat earlier that he had gave 31 new caps during his time. So he did bring new players through. Whether they are good enough, whether they have the quality there, is maybe a little bit more up for debate. And also, can they do it this close to the World Cup? Sam Warburton was brilliant on this, actually, on one of Five Live's podcasts. They're doing them every day through the Six Nations on the Rugby Union Daily feed. But he was brilliant on this. I think the one they released on Monday, where he's talking about when he first came into the team, they were having to go through a transition, and eventually it came good. But this close to a World Cup, you almost can't do it. It's too difficult now. Now, I think there perhaps needs to be some sort of middle ground here where you're still relying on the experience of some of those older heads. For example, I think George North will still be there. I don't necessarily think there's an outside centre bashing the door down to come in place of him. But elsewhere, Chris Chiunza, Jack Morgan, I know is starting to be a part of the team. David Jenkins as well. Are there some players that can come in and just give that side a little bit more youth? We'll wait and see what Warren Gatland chooses, what he does in terms of his selection policy, but that is a big call for him, a big debate, a big talking point in Wales at the moment. All right, number 4, England have to win. I think England will beat Italy. I know Italy were good against France, but they've never beaten England. They're coming to Twickenham, and England, I think, just need a response. They need to get that first victory. If the Steve Borthwick era starts with 2 defeats, and one of those being Italy for the first time, all of a sudden it all becomes very uncomfortable and nervous again, I think, and quite negative around the team. But if they can put in a bit of a performance, if they can get the result, they're up and running, and hopefully then into this championship. There's some big selection decisions for Steve Borthwick, and I'd encourage all of you to look at the 2 videos I've done the last couple of days on the channel, one of which I picked my England team that I would have starting against Italy, and another of 5 areas that England need to improve on. So do search out those videos on the channel. But big weekend for England. They need to get that win. I think that's absolutely pivotal. And then finally, the 5th point, how good are Italy? They were good against France. They have beaten Australia. They beat Wales at the end of the last Six Nations. I want another performance. I don't necessarily think they'll win, but I want another performance. Because if you think about it, out of all the points I've gone through, Italy being consistently much better than they have been over the last decade or whatever it has been, is the most significant development for this Six Nations. The Italy game, which they usually put on a Sunday, would often be the game that if you miss that one, you're not too worried about it. You want to watch it if you're free, but equally, if you get a better offer or you're out, you maybe miss it, because you kind of knew what the result was going to be. But all of a sudden, with Scotland improving in the way that they are, if they go 2 from 2, Italy improving as well, the competitiveness of the championship is just enhanced so much. And yes, we've got Ireland and France still up here, who I think are fairly separated from the rest. but below that, it makes it really, really competitive. It's really important for the Six Nations. So I'm hoping that this Italian team are starting to develop into the real deal. They've still got a way to go. They're still going to always be underdogs in every game they play in the Six Nations, but can they push England? Can they put in another performance? That's what I want to see. I think they're actually going to have to kick on again. I thought the officiating did favour them a little bit in the game on Sunday against France, but even so, how much can they upset England? Because if they can stay in that game, if 60 minutes into that game, it's pretty tight at Twickenham, things are going to start getting pretty nervy, I think. So let's wait and see what they do. But those are kind of my things for why this weekend in the Six Nations is so big. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and also drop a comment down below, as I've said already. What do you make of the 5 points that I've gone through? And also add your own thoughts in there as well, regardless of what team you support. I think there are so many storylines, there's so much interest in the Six Nations, and that's why we all love it. All right, I'll see you in the next one.